June 26, 9:32 a.m. I arrived in downtown Los Angeles, ready to conquer another day of hunting down filming locations. However, this particular film was going to be rather tough due to the fact that it had a large number of locations spread all around Los Angeles and some outside of Los Angeles. But considering today is the anniversary of this film, I figured what better time to look for the locations. Let's go see what we can find. The movie begins with Dan Aykroyd, who plays Friday, the nephew of Joe Friday from the original Dragnet TV show. And it begins with him talking, doing some dialogue, just like they would do on the original Dragnet TV show. And while they're doing that, it's showing some random locations around Los Angeles, well, mostly around Los Angeles. So this public parking lot right here, this is where Friday is standing around waiting to meet his new partner. And things look a little bit different here now. And actually at the end of that scene, the driveway that they're standing in is this driveway that I'm currently standing in, but there's no longer access into the lot from here. There's a giant shrub and there's a gate, but like I said, there's a shot of them standing right here in this driveway. Their car is parked right here, and Friday and Pep are standing next to the car, and you can see all of these buildings right here. All of the buildings still match up, but the lot is a little bit different. When they're driving on the freeway and Pep is talking trash to Friday for how slow he's driving, behind Pep you can see a bunch of buildings. It would have been right over here, but now these newer buildings are blocking it. But we do see them go underneath this overpass, and you can then see this parking structure behind them. They're actually driving on Shoreline Drive in Long Beach, California, and they use this in a lot of different movies because it kind of looks like a freeway. We've been here for Clueless, Fletch, Gleaming the Cube, a bunch of movies, because it's just safer to film on Shoreline Drive than to film on an actual freeway. Friday and Pep get called out to the Los Angeles Zoo, and you can probably already tell that it does not look anything like it did back in the 80s. It's had a full remodel since then. But it was here inside of the LA Zoo where they find out that the pagans broke in and they stole a giant anaconda snake and a fruit tree bat, and they also gave the lion a ridiculous haircut.
Somebody must have wanted that lion's mane pretty bad to pull a twisted stunt like that.
When they're on their way to Jerry Caesar's mansion, we see them hang a right turn and go through these gates right here. But once they arrive at Jerry Caesar's mansion, that was filmed all the way on the other side of town. It was filmed right here behind me at the Sisters of the Immaculate Heart of Mary. Now, this is, of course, off limits to the general public, but luckily there's a lot of pictures that you can find on Google where you can match things up. And everything was filmed here. The front entrance of the mansion, the pool, all of it is here on this property. I'm not exactly sure what this is. This is a historic building that I believe was home to the nuns, but then there was like a big lawsuit and Katy Perry tried to buy it. I think it's now a school, but in Dragnet, this was Jerry Caesar's mansion. The little food stand that they go to, Police Dogs, was located roughly right about here, and you can tell by all of the buildings that you can see behind it. But everything right here on either side of the street has been bulldozed and rebuilt. Absolutely nothing here looks the same anymore. When they respond to the call at the train tracks about the chemical being siphoned out of the train cars, that was right here. There's no longer train tracks here, but the tracks used to run right through this area. The way that we can tell that this is where it was is when they're walking over to the tracks, and really all throughout that scene you get shots of the building across the street, and that's this building. And although it's now a brewery, the building still looks the same. It no longer has that thing on the roof, but for the most part, the building looks the same. It still has those utility poles out front. And then also when the camera is shooting in this direction, you can see downtown Los Angeles behind them. They stop at a newsstand, and while they're at that newsstand, that's when we first get introduced to the Reverend Whirly, because they look up and they see him on a television show talking to the police commissioner. Now, that newsstand used to be located here on Las Palmas at Hollywood Boulevard. You can see that newsstand, it's still here, but it's no longer in business. Now, the way that I figured out that this was the newsstand is for a split second behind them, you can see a sign for the Las Palmas Mexican restaurant. It's no longer there, but there is a sign where that one used to be. I think it now says Las Palmas Furniture Warehouse, but looks like it has a hamburger on it. I'm not really sure, but that's where the sign was. This was the newsstand. One location that I really wanted to find, but I wasn't able to track down, is the apartment of Emil Muzz. Friday gives this address
At 8823467 Magnolia Boulevard.
but that sounds more like a phone number, so it's obviously not real. It frustrates me because I'm almost positive this is somewhere in the San Fernando Valley. So after they leave Emil's apartment, they're sorting through his trash and they're sitting at a table that was located roughly right about here in the middle of Echo Park Lake. And there's quite a few things that you can see behind them. You can see this bridge right over here. And you can also see this fountain in the middle of the lake. You can also see these buildings on the other side of the lake, but they're now blocked by all of these plants. When Friday makes the phone call, that payphone was located right over here. You can see some of those buildings off in the distance. And Pep is standing on top of a fountain. That was this fountain right here. Looks a little bit different. It's no longer a fountain and it doesn't have that bell. It has a different statue, but the bell is actually right out here in front. If we walk out here onto the sidewalk, that is the bell that you see behind Pep. So Friday and Pep go looking for Emil Muzz, and they find him here at the marina, sitting in his limo that was parked right over there. Now there's not actually a sign that says Caesar's Seamate, but that is where the limo is parked. And the scene actually begins looking at this statue. Emil ends up crashing into a lifeguard tower, and luckily, they're able to take him into custody.
You want anything, Muzz?
Chewing gum, Snickers bar, and my attorney badge kisser.
So right now we're at Fort MacArthur in the city of San Pedro because this is where they have the big pagan ceremony. So right here, these are the main gates coming into Fort MacArthur, and this is where they enter into the pagan ceremony. They actually come down this road right over here, and then they would have made a left turn, and then they come down this path, and right over here is where they park their car. And when they do, you can actually see that little building right over there. So after they park their car, they come walking this way, and there was a bunch of cars over here, and there was a big school bus that they had parked there, blocking all of those buildings. Right here is where they're standing when the pagans show up with the drink cart and offer them to sip the nectar of Seitan.
There are two who have not yet sipped the nectar of Seitan.
I'm standing in basically the same spot as Pep. You can tell by these trees behind me. Now it's kind of hard to tell, but I think this might be the exact spot after they have a little surprise before the ceremony.
A small surprise before the ceremony starts.
And they put on their goat leggings. They come right over here and they start doing the dance with everybody. And right over here is where the pagan ceremony took place. Up there is where the leader of the pagans was standing.
In this fact,
With this bat, I do constipate. The pagans then throw the virgin Connie Swale into the pit below, which has the giant anaconda that they stole from the zoo. Joe and Pep dive in and save Connie Swale, and they all escape through some tunnels. So after they escape the giant snake, they go running through some tunnels, and then they come running out right here. Now this is where all of the pagans are waiting for them, and the gates are now covered by plywood, but you can just barely see right here on the top. Those gates are still here. So all of the pagans are standing right here waiting for them to come out of the tunnel. Friday tries to place all of them under arrest. Of course, that doesn't work. And so Pep decides to take matters into his own hands, and he fires his gun into the air, and chaos erupts. All of the pagans go running everywhere. So Friday gives Connie Swale a ride home to Anaheim, but her house was actually located right here at Universal Studios Hollywood. Her house was located on Colonial Street, and the house that was used for Connie Swale's doesn't really look anything like it did back in the 80s. These houses are always getting remodeled, but when they first come down the street, you can see a house off in the distance. That's this one, and it still looks somewhat the same. And you can also see a little bit of the house next door to hers, and that house looks almost exactly the same. So the next morning they return to the same spot with Captain Gannon, and they come here to meet the police commissioner to show them everything that they found. But of course, when they arrive, everything is gone, and it makes it look like they made the entire thing up. Friday goes to pick up Pep from his apartment, which was located right here. Completely different building, looks nothing like it did in the movie, but there's a couple of things here that we can match up. When Friday is walking up the steps, the building across the way, you can see these little windows that look into the parking garage. And then when they come out of the building, you get a far away shot, and you can see this building that was located right behind it. That building is still the same. And as they're walking out of Pep's place, that's when their car explodes, and their car would have been parked right about here, but nothing else that you see around their car when the camera is looking in the opposite direction, none of that is the same anymore. So they get a tip from Pep's informant that the pagans are supposedly storing the stolen chemicals in a milk factory, and they go there to bust it, and that milk factory, I believe, was here at Universal Studios on New York Street, but it doesn't really look the same anymore. You got to remember, almost all of New York Street burned down in a fire, but there is one building that looks almost the same. It's the theater, and you see that behind Friday when he first arrives. So Pep is a little curious about Friday's personal life, and he decides to follow him after work. And he follows him to a big house that's, I guess, supposed to look scary, but it really doesn't. And it turns out to be Friday's grandma's house, his maternal grandma, Grandma Monday. And she must live in Anaheim too, because she lives right across the street from Connie Swale on Colonial Street. Her house was here at Universal Studios. And actually, her house is the Munsters house. And Tom Hanks should be familiar with that house because it was also Corey Feldman's house in the movie The Burbs. So Friday and Granny Monday head to the Brown Derby restaurant to meet Connie, and Pep tags along. Now, this was the hardest location to figure out, and honestly, it still doesn't make any sense to me. I know that when they make movies, a lot of times they'll use multiple locations for one spot, but I don't know, this one, I just don't understand why they did it. So, when they first arrive to the restaurant, they pull up right here in front of this building. Now, this was the old Brown Derby in Pasadena on Colorado Boulevard. It's no longer the Brown Derby, but this is where it was. So when they first arrive, we get a shot of them pulling up in front of this building, and then also the close-up of Pep pulling up on his motorcycle. That was right here as well. You can see these buildings across the street. And when they walk into the restaurant, that was also right here, and you can tell because those appear to be the very same doors that this building had back in 1987. Pretty cool. Now, as far as the stuff inside of the restaurant, I'm gonna assume that that was here at this location, but I don't know that for sure. But when they come out of the restaurant, that was also here in Pasadena because you can see the same buildings behind them across the street. And when the limo pulls away, that was also right here in front of this location. And when Captain Gannon is telling Friday that he's gonna have to take his badge and gun, he was standing right here. And one way that you know that is when he walks away to get into his car, you can see this on the ground. And when Pep and Granny Monday get on the motorcycle and ride off, that was also here. You can see those same buildings and also these ones on the corner. But then when Friday and Connie get into the car, they're now in a completely different place. Behind Joe across the street, you can see a business called Imperial Crystal Lighting, which used to be located right here. It's no longer that, but you can find a picture of it on Google. You only see Imperial Crystal Lighting when Joe's getting into the car, and we're really far away from that other location in Pasadena. We're near Brentwood, or we might be in Brentwood, I'm not really sure. But what's really weird is right here across the street, it's now an empty lot, but this used to be a Brown Derby restaurant. So for whatever reason, they shot that scene at two different Brown Derby restaurants that are nowhere near each other, and you don't even see the other Brown Derby restaurant. So I really can't understand why they didn't just shoot it all at the one location, but what do I know? So there's a meeting at the cemetery with Jerry Caesar and the Reverend, and we later find out that the police commissioner is also there, and they're sitting on some benches next to a statue that was located right here, and we know that because you can see just a little bit of this tombstone and also this one right over here that says Eckley. You can also see the chapel in the background and this tree. Now there's an overhead shot where we see the police commissioner run from this grave over to the Reverend who's still standing by the statue. And in that shot, we can see that the bench connected to the statue butts right up to these two grave markers. So that would tell us that right here is where that statue was. Pep goes to hunt down Emil at Muscle Beach, and they shot that right here next to the Santa Monica Pier. Now, the real Muscle Beach is down the ways a little bit at Venice Beach. I don't think there was ever a Muscle Beach here, was there? Or maybe there was, but I don't believe there was. But we know that they shot that here because you can see the Santa Monica Pier behind them. You can see the Playland Arcade. So where are they holding Connie and Joe? Right here at the Griffith Observatory. Friday and Pep are able to escape, and they head to Jerry Caesar's mansion where there's a big anniversary party taking place. They get into a shootout with the pagans, and during that shootout, the Reverend Worley and the police commissioner escape, taking Connie Swale with them. After getting his badge and gun back, Friday and Pep take off to try and stop Reverend Worley. Friday and Pep are now racing towards the airport where the Reverend Worley and the police commissioner have Connie Swale. We see them heading towards this tunnel, and at the last minute they hop over the island and they're now heading against traffic. When they get to the other side of the tunnel, they hop over the island again, and we see them pass by a sign that says Los Angeles Airport, Century Boulevard. Unfortunately, they arrive at the airport just as Worley's jet is taking off. After leaving the police commissioner at the airport, Worley is now flying with Connie Swale, thinking that he got away, when suddenly an LAPD fighter jet pulls up alongside him. And who's inside? Joe Friday. So Joe rescues Connie Swale, and the Reverend Worley is taken into custody, and everybody lives happily ever after. Well, that's going to do it for this video. Thank you for coming on this long journey with me to hunt down all of these filming locations. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.